Have you ever had one of those days when you wish, if even for only a little while, you could get away from it all? Leave your troubles behind, pack your bags, and take a well-earned vacation? Sound too good to be true? Well, no, it's really not all that hard to do. Just throw a few things into your old suitcase, head on down to your local Bahnhof, pick up a ticket, and the next thing you know, you'll be on your way to places you thought you could only dream of. Take a trip with us down south a ways to the heart of the Black Forest, Triberg, home of rushing waters, rolling hills, and of course, those famous cuckoo clocks. And we'll discover that down-to-earth Bavarian charm and hospitality in one of Europe's oldest cities, Augsburg. That and more tonight on Passport. Trains, trains, trains. If you've been in Germany a while, you've probably noticed that Germany is a country that travels by train. From the shores of the North Sea to the mountains of Bavaria and all points in between, there's hardly a place you can't get to by train. And not just here in Germany, but all across Europe. Tonight, we'll give you a few tips on how to plan your next trip by what has to be the easiest way to get around Europe, by train. One thing to keep in mind, it's best to be at the platform about 15 minutes beforehand. And you've probably heard more than once that you can practically set your watch by the German train system, something the German railroad takes a lot of pride in. So hurry on up there and climb aboard, because our next stop is Triberg.
Sie haben Anschluss mit dem Bahnbus nach Schönwald und Furtwangen um 16:29 Uhr.
It seems just about any time you mention any place in the Black Forest, folks automatically think of deep, dark woods, and of course, those cuckoo clocks. Well, our visit to Triberg won't be any exception. Here, you'll certainly find that romantic Black Forest Germany is so famous for, and naturally, lots of clock shops, practically one on every corner. We'll stop back by later on and see how those world-famous cuckoo clocks are made. And check out, yep, you guessed it, the world's biggest Black Forest cuckoo clock. But first, let's head into town a ways to a spot that would have to be one of the most scenic in the Black Forest. Triberg's mountain waterfalls. When those early settlers to these parts came across Triberg's waterfalls, they must have decided right then and there that here was where they wanted to stay. And it's pretty easy to see why. You may have noticed that the falls are rather popular with tourists too. You won't find too many spots like this down in the lowlands, let alone in Ohio of all places.
No, we don't have no hills in Ohio.
No. It's your first time to Triberg, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Beautiful. Really like it. I was stationed over here in 51, 52 down in Munich. We going to try to get down to Garmy sometime this next week.
What's the best part of Triberg, you think, so far?
Oh, I don't
Shopping.
know.
That's all
We've been
doing
shopping.
so
We
far.
stopped and ate. Everything was real nice. Everything.
Sightseeing? Buy any clocks yet?
Not yet, but I'm going to.
Well, while you're shopping for your next cuckoo clock, you just may run across one that's a little bigger than the rest. 50 times bigger to be exact, and the biggest in the world according to Guinness. So, what, you may ask yourself, would possess someone to build the world's biggest cuckoo clock? Herr Joseph Dold and his wife are what you might consider a few of a vanishing breed. Folks who are rather proud to make and sell their own Black Forest clocks in the same way as those days of old. Along with building his usual collection of Black Forest clocks, Herr Dole decided, why not try and make one a little bigger than the rest? Sort of a challenge to the master clockmaker's skill, as it were.
Alle Räder auf dieser Seite, die braucht man für den Kuckucksruf.
Not only is this grand collection of gears and weights actually work, it's all handmade from wood. Keeps pretty good time, too. If you're more in the market for a clock you can take home with you, you might want to stop by any one of the local shops. Not only do they sell clocks, but most make and build them just as well. Now, making those famous Black Forest cuckoo clocks has become pretty big business. But in spite of the temptations to cut corners and save money, local clock factories still spend the time and the effort into putting together each clock as a work of art. Once the wood carver finishes the front of the clock, the body and the clockworks come together on the assembly line. All this to create a timepiece that will grace someone's home with a character all its own. Speaking of clocks, it's time to head back down to the station and catch our train. This time, heading down towards that land of deep blue waters and high mountains. From the heart of the Black Forest, through the rolling hills of Baden-Württemberg, we head towards our last stop on our trip through southern Germany, Augsburg. So why have we come to Augsburg, of all places, for our last stop, instead of, say, Munich just down the tracks a little ways? Well, for one thing, Augsburg has been around a little longer, about 1,200 years longer. And while Augsburg may not be a big city, it's by no means small, with about 250,000 people making it their home. Surprisingly, not many folks have heard about Augsburg, which, in a way, for those who live in this treasure of Germany's past Renaissance, is a bit of a mixed blessing. If you're looking for the fast-paced hustle and bustle of many of Europe's bigger cities, you won't find it here. What you will find is the down-to-earth, friendly, easygoing lifestyle of the South that is, in a word, typically Bavarian. Though Augsburg today lies right in the middle of Bavaria, it wasn't always that way, and folks in these parts still like to think of themselves as Schwabians. Sort of a matter of pride, you understand. Augsburg didn't become part of Bavaria until 1806, and then only through royal decree. But back to the reason why we came to Augsburg in the first place. Aside from enjoying a bit of that old-fashioned South German hospitality and Gemütlichkeit, Augsburg has a distinction of being one of Europe's oldest cities, 2,000 years old this year to be exact. Being 2,000 years old would be an accomplishment for any town to want to celebrate, and Augsburg is certainly no exception. In the months to come, the good citizens of Augsburg will be hosting parades, outdoor festivals, and exhibitions of all kinds. A sort of community birthday party. And everyone, especially those folks who haven't stopped by already, are certainly invited. You might think that being 2,000 years old, Augsburg would be just another relic of the past. Not so. Although Augsburg today isn't the center of trade and commerce it once was, it's still a thriving, industrious, modern city with the trappings of its past a part of everyday life. Around about its many high towers and busy side streets, you'll find those reminders of old Augsburg's past glories. So how can we really say for sure that Augsburg is 2,000 years old? Well, a lot of those clues to Augsburg's early beginnings you can find around the town's high cathedral, among other places. What might look like a lot of old clutter from those early days is really part of a vast legacy from the Romans from as far back as 15 BC. Now, the early Romans had a way of getting around a bit, and while on one of their many conquests across Europe, they decided to stop around these parts and stay for a while. And since the emperor of Rome in those days was Augustus, his troops called their new settlement Augusta Vendelicorum in his honor. Now, Augusta Vendelicorum is a bit of a long name for any town, so folks back then thought just calling their home Augsburg would be a little simpler. No offense to the good emperor, of course. But our story about Augsburg isn't just about the old city, but rather the people who live and work here and make it their home, and in a very special way at that. If you're thinking about paying a visit to Augsburg for the first time, your first stop should be, of course, the town's tourist office. So how to find the tourist office? Easy enough, just follow those signs with the eye. In Augsburg, the tourist office is just a short walk from the Bahnhof at Bahnhofstrasse number 7. That's D8900 Augsburg if you're thinking about dropping them a line. Frau Rutsche is what one might call a native Schwabian, and rather proud of it. She's also a member of the Augsburg Tourist Board and offers first-time visitors to Augsburg some helpful advice.
Well, first of all, everybody who comes to Augsburg must contact the Augsburg Tourist Office. Here we are the most helpful people to help along finding the way around. We do belong to one of the most important metropolis of the Middle Ages, and this pride of being an important city is still there. People are very fond of the city. They go along with every action that is taken by the city. And of course, being Swabians means that we are very, well, how can I put it in the right expression? We are slow, we are feeling comfortable, we are not hectic.
And that easygoing way of life is certainly not too hard to find. Just a short stroll around town will convince you that, among other things, Augsburg is anything but hectic. So where to start our trip around Augsburg? Well, for starters, how about catching the old Straßenbahn and heading downtown, where there's just about always something going on. But first, we'll have to get ourselves a ticket from the Bahnhofstrasse, where we are now, towards the market area and Fußgänger zone by the old Rathaus. Since we're only going a little ways, we'll be staying in the same zone pretty much. But if you want to go farther, you need to check what color zone your destination is in. Then just press the adult tickets button for that zone and pay the amount on the counter. In this case, only a mark 60. Be sure and pick up your change, and of course your ticket, and you're all set. Most transportation downtown runs every 15 minutes or so you won't have too long to wait. Just be sure to catch the right tram. For our trip, the number 2 will get us to where we want to go. Like most German towns, once you've got your ticket, you can travel around just about as far as you like by any tram, subway, or bus, which makes it easier getting to just where you want to go. One thing to remember, though, you have to be going in the same general direction and have a valid ticket for each zone you travel. While you're on your way downtown, you just might wind up seeing more places you'll want to check out later on. And since most of the sites are pretty close together, we'll be getting off at the old market to start. Over the years, Augsburg's market has become more than just a place to shop for groceries. It's become a bit of a social gathering place for farmers, housewives, and other shoppers from all around town. Along with picking up a dozen eggs or so, and maybe some odds and ends for the family table, you'll probably find more than an earful of the latest gossip, if that's what you're looking for. Now, farmers and their lady folk have been coming here to market from the country around Augsburg for centuries. It's sort of a tradition, not to mention a good way to sell their farm-fresh groceries. If you're looking for a good way to lay out a family feast at a reasonable price, this is certainly the place. But you'll find more than just groceries here. And right around the corner from the farmer's market, you'll find the ever-popular Fußgänger zone, the true heart of Augsburg. When folks here in Augsburg like to get out and about, they usually head on down to the town's main shopping area, the Fußgänger zone. Why? Well, no matter what time of the year it is, it seems there's just about always something going on. I mean, where else could you find someone to play an Irish jig of all things while you're shopping around in the middle of Bavaria? While you're enjoying your shopping and sightseeing, you may want to stop by what folks here at Augsburg proudly consider one of their greatest treasures, the old Rathaus. You might think that if you've seen one old Rathaus, you've seen them all. Well, this time you'll be in for a bit of a surprise. Back a few hundred years ago, when Augsburg was still one of the world's wealthiest cities, the town fathers decided that they'd like to show off their money a bit. And what better way than to build a hall of gold? This monument to extravagance isn't all gold, of course, but a fantastic creation of frescoes, fine woods, and gold leaf, and all dedicated to the citizens of Augsburg. Unfortunately, most of the old city hall was destroyed by fire during the war. But that didn't stop the people of Augsburg from completely rebuilding the old town hall to its former elegance, all at a cost of more than 18 million marks. Money the people of Augsburg consider well spent. While the townsfolk of Augsburg were proud to show off their prosperity, they didn't forget about others less fortunate than themselves. Just across town you'll find one of the world's oldest social settlements, a sort of town within a town known as the Fugar. This old collection of houses and apartments was originally built back in 1519 as a home for the poor, by perhaps then one of the world's richest men, Jacob Fugar. So why did the rich Herr Fugar decide to build a town for the poor? Well, perhaps as the old saying goes, he couldn't take it with him. So what better way to use all that money than to help someone else? But whatever his reasons, the poor of Augsburg surely appreciated it. And even to this day, the yearly rent for a 2.5-room apartment is only 1 mark 71 pfennig. Since the Fugarei is about the oldest settlement of its kind anywhere in the world, it naturally enough attracts a lot of visitors. The folks who live here don't seem to mind too much, though. They rather enjoy all the company. If by chance you happen to be in the neighborhood to look up an old friend, you may have to remember a few things to find your way around. For example, those old house numbers may look a little different than ours today, and the handles for the doorbells come in some pretty strange shapes. Well, there's a reason for all that. Back in those early days without electricity, it was rather hard to find your way home or to a friend's house in the dark. So to find your way, you just remembered the shape of the house's handle.
You know, those folks back in the Middle Ages didn't have a whole lot of our modern conveniences, but one thing they did have was a lot of ingenuity and a taste in good food. Something you too can enjoy in a rather special way.
If you hadn't noticed already, Augsburg is a town very much in touch with its past. And what better way to relive those days gone by than to feast as those city and country folk once did, more than 450 years ago. Welcome to Augsburg's Welser Küche, a sort of slice of medieval history you can really sink your teeth into. Before you start digging in, though, your waiter will tell you just how to mind your manners, befitting an honored guest to the Welser medieval banquet.
Später kam das Haus in Besitz einer angesehenen Bürgerfamilie und eine Tochter dieser Familie hat dann...
Our host for this evening's repast may be a little hard to follow in German, so we'll give you a bit of an idea of how to stay in your host's good graces. First of all, you may notice that there aren't any forks or spoons at your table, but you will find a rather sharp, oversized knife that looks a lot like a dagger. Certainly no coincidence. If you should have any trouble getting your dinner to your mouth, by all means, feel free to use your fingers. Before helping yourself to the bread, be sure and break it, not cut it, and share it with your neighbors. They'll appreciate the gesture. Should you, by chance, carelessly forget to mind your manners, well, the house has a way of dealing with neglectful diners. After the traditional cup of mead, to start things off, you may commence to enjoy your medieval feast to your heart and stomach's delight. Well, all good things must come to an end, even back in the Middle Ages. But it's back to the present and on towards home as we say farewell to Augsburg till next time. In the meanwhile, let's take a look at some of the things coming up here in Germany in the near future. If you're a fan of the equestrian arts, there's an indoor World Cup riding tournament in Berlin from April 17th to the 21st. Or if tennis is your game, you can check out the International Tennis Championships in Hamburg on the 28th of April to the 5th of May. And there's the annual spring market in Mannheim on the 27th of April to the 4th. Don't forget Augsburg's 2,000-year festival that kicks off on the 7th of April right downtown. And, of course, there's always the Stars and Stripes and your local unit newspapers, USO and ITT, to help you find out more about what's going on in your neighborhood. Should you have any questions about any other events or places you might like to visit, you can write the German National Tourist Board here in Frankfurt at Beethovenstrasse 69, D 6000, Frankfurt am Main.
Well, that's going to do it for this month's show. Remember, if you have any suggestions or comments, you can write to us at Passport, care of AFN Europe, APO 09757. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next month on Passport.